One of the most asked questions I've been asked over the years is,
You just know it's going to be a good one when the Englishing is not even as good as mine. When me am talking really good to be the biggest smart. And it doesn't help that it's from old mate Ken Ham, everyone's favourite Australian to make fun of because the man is a fucking idiot.
where did Cain get his wife?
Cain didn't have a wife. Cain was deified. The clans tell tales of him. Few know the truth. He was mortal once, as were we all. Wait, no, I'm thinking of The Legacy of Cain, a story about time-travelling vampires, something that is far too sensible and grounded to be compared to the biblical narrative. I mean, if you're going to have an all-powerful being who is literally perfect, you can't have the first thing he does go catastrophically wrong and then pretend that's both how he wanted it and entirely not how he wanted it. That doesn't make any fucking sense. Anyway, what the hell was I talking about?
Some people seem to have the idea that Adam and Eve only had 3 children.
Oh, weird, because I had the bizarre idea that Adam and Eve were fictional characters, so they had a grand total of fictional people that don't fucking exist amount of children. But of course that's not fair. Sure, in the Bible, aka God Does Real Because I Said So the musical, the only kids anyone ever talks about are Cain and Abel. And you know, I would bet most watching don't even know of the third, mostly because their shonen arc wasn't a very good one, since it was just filler about how they made a cheese sandwich or something. I wouldn't mind, but no one even ate the fucking thing.
Cain and Abel and Seth. But Genesis 5:4 says Adam had other sons and daughters.
Adam did, but Eve didn't. Well, that is interesting and proves that men just do all the hard work around the house, including giving birth. Look, obviously I'm taking the piss, but you can't tell me there aren't biblical literalists who found some way to make it so that labour is way worse for the guy, because he has to, help out around the house a bit more that day. What a jip.
In fact, there's a Jewish tradition, and this is written up in Josephus, a famous Jewish historian, that they had 33 sons and 23 daughters.
Jesus Christ, that poor fucking guy having to put up with so many damned kids. I still jest, of course, but can you imagine having to squeeze out that many little bastards? I'm surprised she didn't fucking explode. But that might be because I don't know how childbirth works. It has something to do with industrial air pump, right?
Well, that's only tradition. We don't know for sure.
Yeah, we do. She didn't, because storybooks aren't real fucking life, my dude. I mean, they exist, but the contents of them rarely reflect reality. That's why one shouldn't, base one's entire worldview and understanding of reality on the tales that tend to fly in the face of what we actually know about said reality. But that's mostly because it makes you sound really, really silly.
But certainly they had other sons and daughters, which means
they were randy little fuckers. It makes you wonder why the Crimsbians are so vehemently anti-sex when the Bible is so full of it. I'm surprised the pages don't stick together. I mean, come on, you can't tell me that no one has ever been so desperate they didn't feel the need to crack one off to one of the sexier passages. You know, like when Moses parted the Red Sea. Wait, that's not a euphemism? Oh, shit. Well, then I have some erotic literature to delete. Excuse me.
Originally, if there are only 2 people, Adam and Eve to start with,
then the genome collapses because there isn't enough genetic diversity to sustain a population after more than a handful of generations. Which is why the idea that God started with 2 people is so fucking ridiculous. Only someone who had no idea how biology works would make it up, and only someone who is willing to ignore science in favour of nonsense would take the words of those scientific illiterates over the way reality actually works. That, or they make up reasons for how it totally could work that are functionally magic, but for some reason the magic stops after a while. For no reason. It's got to be one of them.
Then brothers had to marry sisters.
Okay. I mean, it's that or Cain fucked his mum, and sure. Okay. Except they really shouldn't, because that is a catastrophically bad idea. Either way, again, the genetic diversity thing would mean that you're going to have a lot of kids with 12 fingers and 17 thumbs, because animals that reproduce sexually tend to be most successful when they branch out into other groups. It's why we know that the Bible cannot be taken as anything other than the musings of people who had no idea how this shit works. Otherwise, they would have been all like, and then God made a fucking shitload of people in order to allow for the genetic diversity required to maintain a population. Because you know he could have done that if he's the magic fella that you say he is. That'll just make Cain a wife? Why the fuck not? It's not like he doesn't magic other shit into existence. Fuck.
I remember once on a radio program, an atheist called up and said, I'm an atheist, and if you believe brothers married sisters, that's immoral.
I mean, I bet he didn't say it like that. I bet it was way more nuanced and probably referenced the scientific understanding of the good reasons people shouldn't marry their siblings. Also, I need to address the marry on so many levels. First off, when he says married, what he actually means is fucking pounded it over and over and over and over again with their sweaty naked bodies. And second, so much of the marriages in the early Bible are just, and they're married now with no ceremony, nothing at all, fuck you. Which screams a couple of things to me. Either they weren't real marriages because you didn't do all the spells and incantations that we now see as so necessary for a marriage to be real, or that shit isn't necessary at all, meaning anyone could be married because they fucking say so it's kind of meaningless anyway. Also, still a euphemism for fucking.
Well, first thing I said was, you're an atheist. You can't accuse anyone else of being immoral.
Fuck off. That is as irrelevant as it is completely untrue. Because aside from blah, 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 morality is a human construct, not a fact about reality, so any human can dictate what they think is moral, they would, in fact, have the best argument for the morality of marrying wink, of brothers and sisters, and so on and so forth. In the scientific understanding we have, making marrying each other real hard can have major negative consequences for their offspring. Also, if you want to do the, you can't tell me about morality, you think a book that says slavery is okay and has nothing much to say about sexual assault is so morally superior, proving that you don't have any fucking morals, at least of any value, to start with.
What do you base your standards?
On morality being evolutionarily beneficial. That's not to say I sit down and work out the most evolutionarily beneficial morals for me to have. It's just that those are the things that we call morals, you know, because again, human construct, but that is my intuitions are explained by that. Again, yours come from a book that we know intuitively is all kinds of fucked up, and that anyone who continues to defend the shitty morals is about as morally bankrupt as you can be without getting thrown into morality debtor's jail. Now, I don't know where I was supposed to be going with that. Shut up.
Now, the point is, the doctrine of marriage is one man for one woman for life.
No, the point is that banging your sister is probably a bad thing. Did you ignore the actual point? You, Kenneth Hamilton, did someone make a point to you with the implied question of how can you justify something that we understand to be deleterious to people being in a book that's supposed to be about how am to do the best humaning basically ever, being in there when you know that if it had good answers, it wouldn't be there. But for some reason, you just shimmied past that, almost like you are kind of a dishonest ham man.
That's what marriage is all about.
What a shallow and meaningless definition of marriage. I mean, there's so much to marriage that even the people who don't really rate it as an institution would call you out as not understanding it if that was what you wrote down as your description of marriage. Unless you were like 1 year old, when you frankly shouldn't be doing this test. Who even let you in here? Get out, baby Ken Ham.
So we have a man and a woman, a brother and sister, getting married. Now, keep in mind...
Well, let's see where this goes. I mean, considering that we know the only keep-in-minds we are likely going to have is, here's a weak, mealy-mouthed, dismissive, hand-wavy as to why this is actually totally fine and makes perfect sense. And if you think that's not good enough, enjoy eternal torture at the hands of the God who claims to love you, I guess.
that 1 Corinthians 15:45 says Adam was the first man. Genesis 3:20, Eve was the mother of all the living. So there was only one man and one woman to start with, which means brothers had to marry sisters.
Again, it really, really, really doesn't. If I had a sanctuary of some endangered animal, I wouldn't just make their offspring endlessly perform hardcore marry. I would, as in my near infinite power, move some of my charges to another location with a different set of those guys and have some of theirs brought back into our group so that we don't just wipe out the entire remaining population because of sheer fucking laziness. And that's just it. God seems to just be being really lazy. Don't make people fuck their sisters because you can't be bothered to make more of them, you cunt.
But it wasn't against God's law until...
It doesn't matter if it's against God's law. It's against the way he set up the universe, apparently. Like, seriously, he didn't have to make it that way, but he did. So when he does force people to do things that are kind of fucked up in order to survive, we get to say, hey, God, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing all the wrong things? Why not be don't an idiot all the time? An actually smarter universe, you fucking cunt.
The time of Moses in Leviticus.
I mean, I suppose it had to be, seeing as if it had been against God boys, then Noah and his small family would have had a similar problem with the first time if they couldn't keep it in the family. Although, again, even without the God's law nonsense, they would still have a problem with 8 people. It just would be a little more protracted before the marriages started to produce 10-eyed abominations that yearn only for death.
Remember, Abraham was married to his half-sister, and that wasn't a problem.
Only for you, because it am not in Bible. But for the rest of us, it's an obvious reason that maybe the Bible isn't quite as on the money as it claims to be. Like, it isn't the inherently inspired word of the man who knows all about the everything and everyone ever, but was in fact written by big stupids who barely understand how fucking breathing worked.
But at the time of Moses, God brought in this law that no longer could close relations marry.
You know, for some reason I thought God never changed his mind, because it's funny that once you get to the time periods where, while the stories are still largely make-believe, their settings are actually set around things that actually happened, like civilizations that existed, etc. And they would understand that maybe they shouldn't marry their brother's brains out so much. So God instead said, you know what? Since you humans think it's bad, now I do too. Peer pressure. Sometimes it means God won't make you fuck your sister. Yeah!
Now, why was that? Well, there could be a number of reasons for that, including no longer do close relations need to marry because there's so many people now.
Why would that matter? Either it's okay for people to be marrying each other till the smell starts to worry the neighbours, or it's not, regardless of the number of people that exist. I mean, what about people who are in the middle of nowhere? If it was actually non-detrimental, then you just made their lives harder for no reason, just to satiate some form of needless control over them. But no, actually, you changed your opinion because someone who knew about inbreeding bad went, shit, we haven't brought that thing up. We really need to not be pushing out 20-toed babies so the other religions don't make fun of us for being a bunch of degenerate weirdos.
But sin has affected everything.
Oh, yeah, sin. Oh, I completely forgot about sin. You know, the all cop-out excuse for why things are bad. I mean, forgetting the fact that if God is all he's cracked up to be, sin should be completely irrelevant. He would think, I don't want there to be any sin. Then there wouldn't be any sin. It's just the quick and easy ambiguous term to justify things that you don't really understand, but really look like God's a capricious arsehole. Well, actually, it must have been sin. Who exactly invented sin? Well, not God. He invented everything but that for some reason. Probably because of the bees that live inside of his beard and tell him to start fires, which is ironic with you being from Australia.
And when Adam sinned, then God withdrew some of that sustaining power. So now...
Why? No, seriously, why? That whole story is super hinky. I mean, God makes these humans that are quite frankly thick as shit and says, ooh, don't eat my tree, 'cause reasons. And then he lets in a used car salesman in their natural form because apparently he had already given up at this point. I mean, he'd been working a whole week after literal eternity of laying about doing sweet all. So clearly, watching your project for more than 5 minutes is just not on the cards. So he missed the car snake, who said, "Hey, et fruit." And the one intelligent humans went, "Okay." And then God, the galactic cheese whiz of intellect, he says, "Hey, this is everyone's fault but mine." He cuts off the snake's, who wasn't actually a snake but someone who looked like a snake's, arms and legs, and all snakes ever, even though they had fucking nothing to do with that, and then punished the humans and everyone else who was also human, who also didn't even exist to do anything, with pain and suffering. And then you sit there and wonder why he sounds like a fucking Disney villain's ridiculous caricature of themselves, and wonder why people like me don't take your "this is a real story for grown-ups" remotely seriously.
There would be mutations and mistakes, generation after generation, that would add up. Now, here's the problem.
God accidentally forgot to tell anyone, because even though he knew all of this, as well as how to make infinite, basically free energy that would make everyone on Earth happy and healthy and educated, and so they would all just have time to dedicate to him with their worship of his greatness. He forgot, because he was too busy playing with his balls and then sniffing his fingers when he thought no one was looking, and then, oopsie, humanity figured out a bunch of stuff he totally meant to tell them, all on their own. So now it would look weird if he came back and told them the rest. So might as well just go back to what he was doing before. Cinnabon.
If close relatives married today, it's more likely they've got the same mistakes, and those mistakes can get together and cause problems in the offspring. But the further away in relationship from each other you are, the more likely it is you could have different mistakes. So where there's a bad gene here, a good one here, so the good one can mask the bad one.
Oh my god, it's like getting a science lesson from a moron. Because that's exactly what it is. Fucking good genes masking bad ones. What utter trite. Just like the rest of this video. Anyway, don't fuck your family even if God tells you it's okay. Because that guy's almost as much of a fucking idiot as Kaham here. Bye!
Wait, before you go, I have something super important to tell you. It's life or death. It will change everything forever. Nope, wait, it's gone. Oh well, probably wasn't important. But while I have you, don't forget to comment, subscribe and notify. And if you want more of my smexy voice, check out Mrs. Six's channel Spoonstaff Stories, where I narrate and voice all the videos, and she does the work. And if you want to support the channel, check out the merch store for cool t-shirts, or check out Patreon, memberships and PayPal to support directly. Finally, follow me on the medias of social to get completely pointless guff and to keep up on the latest releases. Oh, I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Whatever you do, don't touch the